Rebel Moon Part 1 is not a good movie. Rebel Moon Part 1 is also not a bad movie. Rebel Moon Part 1 is a flawed, mediocre movie. But wait, this is just the normal cut. You can't judge Rebel Moon Part 1 before the extended director's cut comes out. The director's cut will definitely be better, someone says emphatically. And they're partially right. Zack Snyder's director's cut of Rebel Moon will very likely be better, but that does not in any way, shape or form excuse the normal version. But before we get into why Rebel Moon Part 1 can't hide behind the director's cut, let's discuss some of the problems with this regular cut. First off, I just want to make it clear from the get-go that I actually like Zack Snyder. I respect his artistic vision and his process, and I do like some of his stuff. Not all of it falls within my taste, and I wouldn't say I'm crazy about any of his work, but I really do like a lot of it. Especially his work with DC, as far as Man of Steel and his extended cuts of Batman vs Superman and Justice League. More than that, Snyder seems like a genuinely nice, humble guy, and from every interview I've seen of his, he seems to have a great passion for his craft, and I truly have so much respect for that. Genuinely, he's a talented director. As far as passion and effort goes, I can really truly see it in Rebel Moon. I can see it in the art direction, in some of the unique alien character designs, in the outfits and the costumes, in the music, in the locations, in the CGI, here and there in the cinematography, and in some of the fight scenes. This movie screams Zack Snyder, and there really are some good things to be seen. At the same time, it's really hard to ignore the massive, gaping flaws that plague the movie. In essence, most of these problems boil down to one thing: terrible exposition. Rebel Moon opens up with lengthy narration explaining the political landscape and short-term history of the universe. After that, every character we meet, starting with our protagonist Cora, goes into lengthy monologues about who they are, what they do, and why they feel this or that way. Without getting into spoilers, the movie follows Cora as she gathers a group of rebels to help her fight the evil space empire. And with every character we meet, we get a smack-you-in-your-face exposition dump to state in boring, excruciatingly literal terms their backstories, goals, and motivations. Sometimes we get flashbacks while a character spouts torrents of exposition at us, but the visuality of the flashbacks doesn't really make things any better. I'm sure you've heard the phrase show, don't tell a million times by now, but Rebel Moon seriously seems to be the antithesis of that. It just wants to sit you down in its lap, open up a book, and read you everything about its world and characters without allowing you to learn it organically for yourself, or to connect the dots over time in any meaningful capacity. Rebel Moon's universe could be interesting. Maybe not greatly so, but possibly surface level interesting. But the heavy-handed exposition of its world building and its characters stops it from being even that, making it really hard to care about this universe that Snyder has built. The movie quickly takes on a very predictable two-layer loop of exposition dump, fight scene, exposition dump, fight scene, rinse and repeat on and on until we get to the last part of the third act, where we have a more extended fight scene that breaks the flow up a little by virtue of running out of exposition. The movie is immensely predictable and very, very clunky with how it explains itself. Its characters are all very bare bones and two-dimensional, and it crams so many in that none of them, save for maybe Cora, get any chance to actually be explored and developed. This also leads into spots of awful pacing, where an important character dies or disappears very soon after you just got introduced to them. Some of my other quarrels with the movie are more minor, but were annoying nevertheless. The dialogue is very wooden almost all of the time, except when it switches gears straight to 100 and becomes really melodramatic instead. Additionally, a lot of scenes, especially towards the beginning of the movie, come off very awkward. Spots where the story struggles to move itself along in an organic way or trips over itself, hyperfixating on dumping more exposition in a forced manner, coupled with subpar dialogue and several instances of bad acting, lead to just awfully clunky scenes. I don't want to play any full scenes because I don't want to get any copyright strikes, but that one scene where Cora and Sam have a friendly girls' conversation while working the fields comes off so unnatural, I almost cringed upon myself into a ball of nothingness. Overall, I wasn't much of a fan of the acting in general in this movie, with no standout performances except for maybe Ray Fisher, Ed Skrein, and Sofia Boutella after I got used to her occasional constipated face. I was very impressed with her physicality in a lot of scenes though, given that I learned she did most of the choreographed fights herself. However, on that note, I did find most of the fight choreography bland and uninteresting. except for maybe the final battle. But I've noticed a lot of people really like the fight scenes here, so that could just be a me thing. A lot of the things I dislike about this movie go back to personal taste, but the exposition problem is an undeniable writing flaw that I doubt can be overlooked by anyone. The movie balances itself out towards the third act as it breaks the exposition fight cycle and becomes more tolerable, but it's not enough to salvage the movie or fix the mistakes that came before, leading to what is ultimately a mediocre movie. The readjustments towards the end saves it from being truly bad, but not enough to make it actually good. Okay, so back to the director's cut. We know that an R-rated director's cut of the movie is coming out in early 2024. We know from Zack Snyder himself that it feels very different. So, should we just spare this regular cut the harsh judgment and wait for the director's cut? No, definitely not, and I'll try my best to explain why. Zack Snyder has a long and loving history with director's cuts, culminating finally in the explosion that was Justice League. Zack Snyder has become very well known for director's cuts. So, while it wasn't surprising to most people that Rebel Moon got a director's cut, it was surely disappointing. For a lot of people, the whole point of this Netflix plus Zack Snyder partnership was to give Snyder full creative control over this movie. A director's cut is usually a cut of the movie where the director has complete creative control over the movie's final state, barring any studio or executive supervision.
All of my director's cut existed as a response to things that were demanded of me to take out of the theatrical version, where that demand was never really made.
So why the hell does Rebel Moon, a movie fully beholden to Snyder and Snyder alone, need a director's cut? The answer to that can be summed up in one word: money. Forbes really hit the nail on the head with their article titled "Rebel Moon will suffer because of Netflix's obvious Snyder Cut stunt." Because this is what this is, a stunt meant to attract attention. But my personal beef as far as the matter goes isn't with Netflix themselves and their very in-your-face attempts to make more money. I mean, obviously that does majorly ruffle my feathers, but my bigger issue isn't with the soulless corporation, but with the man himself, Zack Snyder. Snyder describes the R-rated director's cut of Rebel Moon to be a somewhat...
It's an alternative reality version. It's not an extended cut of this movie. It's almost like a different movie, it's almost a different universe.
In essence, both of these movies are fully Zack Snyder. Both of them are him doing whatever the hell he wants, but the regular version is him doing whatever the hell he wants within the bounds of a PG-13 rating. What this means is that this time, the failures of the regular cut cannot be blamed on the studio. Snyder fully approved and appreciated both cuts, but the R-rated one was the one where he could really put his full personality into it and go extreme with it. The normal cut is toned down Zack Snyder for a more general audience, but Zack Snyder nevertheless. And in his own words...
And I'm super proud of the PG-13 version of the movie. I really am. I think it's really fun and it's clean and cool.
The problems with this cut fall on Zack. There's no out this time. There's no studio interference to blame or any forced or rushed decisions. Snyder released this regular cut in its current state, fully content with the final product. People shouldn't hesitate to criticize this movie on the basis that it isn't the director's cut. Because even though it isn't, it still is something that Snyder totally approves and stands by. Something where, as he said, there were no studio demands for things to be taken out. As for the two-cut debacle in general, in the Forbes article that I mentioned, the writer puts the blame on Netflix, stating, "But again, this is a baffling decision by Netflix to demand some PG-13 only version here." However, that doesn't seem like it's exactly the case.
There was just this anticipation that we knew it would be a PG-13 movie. With my normal sort of aesthetic, is a very hard R, very sexy, violent, crazy, everything's all at 11. Sort of believing in my mind that when I came to the production, I would just be able to kind of collapse it onto a more sort of broader audience adventure.
Snyder's initial concept of Rebel Moon was R-rated full Snyder, but he'd always planned on eventually tuning this down to a broader audience, more PG movie. And that was the direction he was going before Netflix offered him a chance to do his unfiltered R-rated version as a cut of its own. Here is where my issue with Snyder comes into play. By accepting that offer, I fear that Snyder has sacrificed his own artistic integrity by allowing one of his cuts to forever be viewed as unsatisfactory or inferior with very clear flaws. He must have known that people were going to feel weird about judging the regular cut because it's just not Snyder's full vision that's in the director's cut. And he has to have seen the issues with that cut and let them slide because he knew he could fall back on the extended cut. And honestly, for me, that cheapens both of them. It makes me feel like he's just fine putting out unsatisfactory work purely to suit the whims of corporate studio overlords, as long as he has the chance to clear his name in an extended cut. And I don't know, if you're fine letting your art suffer like that to suit a studio, you've kind of lost my respect. I don't know, maybe I'm reading way too far into this. I just know it rubbed me the wrong way. If you're making a movie and you have full creative control, do your best to make it good the first time in every form. Don't allow it to be mediocre because you have the option to fall back on an extended cut. And also, fuck Netflix. But anyways, thanks for watching. I feel like this video is more emotional and maybe a bit more aggressive than I usually make these, but I hope you understand where I'm coming from and that I do in fact respect Snyder as a filmmaker. Anyways, if you liked the video, make sure to give me a little thumbs up and let me know what you thought of the movie in the comments below. Do you think the movie's good? Do you think it's terrible? Am I overanalyzing this two cuts thing too much? Please let me know in the comments below and let's discuss. Thanks again, take care and see you soon.